A very good evening to all of you. I, Dr. Vikas Asthana, welcome you all to the first session of eStar 2021, which is a pre-incubation training program for the early stage startups. The course will cover almost all aspects from idea validation to market research to training and mentoring to business planning, prototyping and demonstration. Today is the first session of this 8-week long course. Hope that all this course will be a memorable leading learning journey for all of you. And the topic for the today's session is overview of startups and the startup ecosystem. And our expert for today's session is Mr. Ashish Bhat, who is the founder and CEO of OMGGroup Bangalore. I, on behalf of the whole team, welcome Mr. Bhat to this platform. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much for having this. Welcome. I think this is the first session Amity Innovation Incubator, and I would like to thank you, everybody, who has given me this opportunity.
Sir, you have muted yourself. Sir, kindly.
Okay, kindly WhatsApp me your Amity ID. You might be having a student ID s.amity.edu. Yeah, quickly send me that ID. I'll add you to the team. Okay.
Yes, sir. Please continue.
Okay, let me restart.
Yes, sir.
Good evening, everybody, and my name is Ashish, and thank you, Amity Innovation Incubator, as well as Amity University Jaipur. Welcome to the first session of the eStart. I'm sure this session will be a great session for all of you, and I'm sure everybody will enjoy this session and the upcoming sessions as well. Let me share my screen, and then we can talk more about it. Because first I would like to introduce myself in a way that you can understand that who is interacting with you today. I hope my screen is visible to you guys.
Yes, sir. This is visible.
So guys, I carry an experience of 20 plus years experience with me as a professional career. I started my career in 2001. And of course, every year I used to think of starting a startup for myself. And every year I used to have different ideas with me, different things, different concepts. But then I felt, it was a long journey with a lot of corporates where I worked. And it was a great learning for me. It was a great exposure for me, along with a lot of corporates in the work period. And then, in 2013, I said, it's enough. Let me think of a startup. And people were, scared of the word startup that time. The way it's actually talking more often, nowadays. Those days, and a family man, who is married, and if you have kids, you can't think of starting any kind of a startup, right? Whether the idea was great or it was a small, I think everybody was scared whether I'll get a success, or I'll face the failures, right? But all about the session we have is all about the startups and the startup ecosystem.
So excuse me, you're muted.
Hello. Ashish sir, you have gone on mute. Yes, thank you, sir. Thank you.
Am I audible now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I was just talking about the journey, how important is to understand the startup culture and then the startup ecosystem before, we jump into that kind of a journey. Um, I have started my own venture in 2014, and from zero billing or zero revenue, today we are sitting at three figures of CRs, right? It's 100 plus CR company with me, and now I have three ventures in last 7 years. Apart from that, I'm also a mentor to Niti Aayog startups, and I regularly, give a lot of consultation to the startups, ideas, validation of the ideas. I also participate in the PM regulations for the startups. So I would say, I devote a lot of time with the students, with the incubators, with the people, to understand their ideas, the concepts, and how they should, lead this journey to a success journey. And let me tell you, on paper, it's very easy to say that, any idea can be formulated, and then, with funding, we can actually achieve the success. But then let me tell you honestly, there are challenges, there are a lot of hiccups, there are changes of the decisions. The markets are so volatile, the markets are so dynamic. Every time a entrepreneur has to actually, think of something different to achieve this success. So it's not only about the papers which we read or we were taught by the people, by the mentors, by the consultants. It's always, you, it's always me, it's always the person who actually have given birth to the ideas. So this is all about me in terms of, what I have done, and a participation for the incubators. Before we start up and we move, it's very important to understand, the startup ecosystem is a vast domain, right? uh, it's not only a kind of a startup word which, defines the whole journey of a ecosystem. It's lot, and it has evolved in years. When we talk about a startup a decade back, people used to see that, okay, he's starting a business, right? But now the journey has completely changed. Everybody is trying to generate something out of the box and then collate with other people, within the ecosystem to make it successful. All right. And when we are taking the help of these external organization, it can be anything. It can be Amity, it can be Niti Aayog, it can be any part of an incubator who actually helps you to research the ideation part, to research on the concept, validation of the concept, and of course leading a helping hand for the financials, right? The overall ecosystem consists of, your first thing is the idea. First thing, you have to really validate whether my idea is really there, who can actually take me to some heights, or should I evaluate it more, you know before we meet mentors or the consultants who are actually trying to help us with the validation. I think it's first me, who have this idea and who are actually giving the birth to a startup with that kind of a idea. It can be out of box idea, but then of course, the first step is, first you validate yourself. You have a trust on your idea part, right? And of course there are a lot of elements involved in, the startup ecosystem. It can be your ideas, it can be the mentors, it can be something which you're trying to patent an idea, it can be the intellectual properties, right? Even you will meet a lot of advisors in the journey of your startup. A lot of people will say something positive about ideas, the idea you have. Few people will say, oh, this is a crap. So you will have mix of people in this startup ecosystem, which will actually give you that kind of advisory moments where you feel that oh, I should uh, come back, I should not do it, right? But then of course it's if you have a confidence on your idea, if you have confidence on your concept, the validation has to come from you, right? So with this booming business environment, when the startups are booming, if we talk about some giants like Flipkart, Amazon, even Amazon, e-commerce was a startup, right? Even though it was a backed up with a kind of giant company, but still, if you feel that it's a startup, right? So with this booming business environment, where a lot of startups or a lot of companies, business companies, startups are coming up, first the need to decode the overall ecosystem becomes a must, right? There are so many new companies every now and then. The new companies are getting registered, right? I was just having a word with one of the member from the ROC Bangalore, because I stay in Bangalore. Said 3,000 plus companies are registered as on daily basis, and out of this 60 to 70% of companies are startups, right? So lot of business, lot of competition is coming in the market, and you can see that one idea is picked by 100,000 and maybe in lakhs. When you talk about the same idea, the only difference make it how it succeeds or how it faces a failure is the execution part and the strategic approach for any startup, right? So that's why I'm saying, though only a handful of them are able to succeed and turn profitable into a long run, that's why it's very important to understand the startup journey and I'm sorry, I couldn't uh, get you.
Sir, I guess that was a glitch. You can continue.
Okay. Okay. So it's very important, to understand first the journey of a startup and then the ecosystem of the startup. If you want your startup to be counted in the same list, where the other biggies are falling off, right? Then you should start by understanding how it really works. I was there for a session in Niti Aayog, and almost 600 students were there. And when I asked, I just throw one question to them, out of the 600 people, how many you guys have a idea or have worked on some idea, which you want to make a reality? And trust me, out of 600 people, 90% of people actually raise their hands and say that, I have something in my mind which I wanted to do, right? So in the market, everybody, whether it's a student, whether it's a job goer, whether it's a professional, whether it's somebody experienced after, like me, I started my journey of a startup after 14 years of experience, right? So everybody wants to be in the same list, but how you will take this idea to a success idea, success journey is something which is critical. Now, just for that, it's of critical importance that you and your team, if you are two people member, you and your team should know what actually is in your mind. Okay, if it's a one person idea and you are involving 10 different people, that's where you actually try to create that ecosystem. It can be the founders and co-founders, it can be the different domain experts, it can be the mentors, it can be the consultants and all. Unless and until you're sure what is going in your mind with them, the journey is not going to be very easy, right? So this session, will help you to understand in a fair way how this ecosystem of the startups works. And I'm sure there's nothing new in terms of when we talk about, theoretically, but then when you actually come into the field and then try your hands with the idea, that is somewhere, the challenges come, right? Few things which I would like to, set up for you is a must have set for every startup owner. Once you know that, okay, I have an idea, okay, you have to validate it. You have to validate it either from yourself. If you're 100% confident, okay, I'm really confident on my idea, I want to do it, right? First thing is the validation from your side, and then you involve certain, experts or people or the mentors which actually will validate your uh, idea. And then of course you educate your team, how this idea I want to implement in the market, right? Second, which is very important, is unravel the dynamics of the entire system, okay, which is a kind of a research, right? If I want to come up with a product, right, it can be an enabler for any industry, right? But first, let's do that kind of a research to understand what are the pain points in this market, what are the pain points in this industry, right? Then only when you see the challenges practically, you have to be in the field to understand the dynamics of the entire system. When you understand the challenges, the pain points of the business owners, of the market, of the tracks, of the finances, of the technology, and it can be, XYZ. There are so many parameters to validate and check the challenges of any industry, right? So second point, which is very important, is to understand the dynamics of the entire system. Third, when you have the validation of your, idea, and somebody say, yeah, please go ahead, and you have a full confidence, okay, I have this idea, I can go ahead, right? And you have understand the pain points of whether you want to go into that product industry or you want to go into that service industry. You understand the dynamics of the entire system, right? Then what's next, which is very important, is your pocket, because that is the game changer at one of the stage, right? When you are actually trying to do something and create that startup environment for yourself, because the startup ecosystem is created by different individuals, different personalities, and one of the personalities is you, who is the, the ideation part, who actually has given a birth to that idea. That's why, you need to understand the whole dynamics of that ideation part. And of course the second part, which is very important, is the fund. Let me talk about the pillars, which creates this startup. And then of course we can talk about the startup ecosystem, because before the ecosystem of the startup, we really need to understand what are the seven pillars or eight pillars which are very important for to create a startup. Ashish, as an entrepreneur, or XYZ from the team from this session, right, first need to understand the culture. What is this culture all about? First, which I spoke about in last two slides, is, do you really believe in your idea? How positive you are despite of understanding the dynamics of the market, understand the challenges, the pain points in the market, of the market, business owners. Do you really feel that my product or service can make a difference? And trust me, a startup idea sometimes make a huge difference, and sometimes it can be even 5% in the market. But then the first question that should come into your mind, do I really believe in my idea? Right. Second, when you have actually understood, okay, fine, this is my idea, I just want to go about it, right? First, feel the journey of entrepreneurship. From a student, when you are actually coming out of Amity, then first thing, there are so many challenges in entrepreneurship journey, right? You need to understand that, okay, I'm ready, I'm mentally ready for this. I just want to take this challenge, right? Third, which is very very important, is the risk and failures. You will always learn from the failures, and some entrepreneurs are willing to take that kind of a risk which will make you to the next level. But few say, no, I am safe, right? I play safe. I don't want to take that kind of risk for my startup, right? I have seen so many failures in my journey of last 7 years of my startup. I had I had situation where I didn't have money to pay my employees. Then what should I do? Should I close it, or should I take a risk? What kind of a risk? Again, there are so many parameters which defines your risk and which define your failures as well. I had a failure that I didn't have a money in my pocket, but have I done any business or have I done any work for my clients in the past? So if yes, then it cannot be considered as a failure. That means the cash flow, which is the second part, which I was talking about, the funds, is very important, right, to run the show. So when I see that, okay, I don't have money in my pocket, but then, yes, I have done some work in this service industry, and I have given some service to my client. So my money is coming after 3 months. Am I willing to take the risk for next 3 months to carry on, or to go in the market, okay, and seek some funders? So this question mark, you need to understand as a part of your entrepreneurship startup culture. Fourth pillar under the culture is competition. I'll give you an example. There was a e-commerce person who said that, okay, I have an idea, and this is only to traditional articrafts, handicrafts, and I have some selected artists. Can I do this e-commerce business, right? So I told them, first you need to understand the market of this domain. Do they do you have the competition in place first? First understand that. Do some research. If Flipkart is selling the same product, so what out of box things or the USPs, which is called as a unique selling product items, something unique in your product, something unique in your item. Are you really giving something unique to the customer to pick you, not Flipkart? So it's very, very important to understand the competition. And of course, you have to see the pockets. You have to see that, am I ready to invest such amount to start up? Am I ready? Am I willing to do the bootstrap? Am I ready to take money from my circle? So this question, in terms of investment, comes as the first part of your culture, because culture is nothing, it's a behavior of an entrepreneur. which tells you whether I should go for it or no. Second important is the enablers, right? You are here because of some platform, right? You are here because Amity is providing this platform, to understand the whole ecosystem of the startups. So somebody is coming and talking about it and all. So what is Amity here? What is the incubator doing here? It's basically giving a platform to you. There are so many incubators across India, and so many incubators, where a lot of successful startups are giving birth, right? So what is in it? They are actually providing you the platform, right? Even these co-work spaces, it accommodates 100 of startups at one place and give you something to work, right? You can actually go and sit there, work peacefully. They provide you everything, right? So they are the enablers for you, right? Where you can't work from home, or you can't hire an office, you can't spend that kind of a money, right? So these co-work spaces, I see that these are the enablers for you. No doubt they are doing their business, right? But for me as an entrepreneur, if I see they enable me something, and of course the support system, where the professionals are involved, are the enablers, because without a proper financial planning, without the proper business planning, you cannot actually target what you need to achieve. All these business plans, all these financial plans, is the enabler. Ultimately, you are the executioners. Third pillar, which is again, I would say, is the basic thing, is the knowledge. And first, knowledge within. Have I done enough research on this product or on this idea? Have I validated it? Once I am through, I'm talking about these lines again and again, that you should validate the idea before going to any mentor or any consultant or any advisor. So the third pillar, which actually again, makes your efforts a little bit easier and guide you, that Ashish, you should not do this. You should take this path. Ultimately, it's your decision as an entrepreneur whether I should take this path or not. But then these are the knowledge providers, right? So it's very important to find these kind of a mentors in the market who will really help you, who will really help you to push within this idea and outside the idea, right? Platforms. Now I have an idea, but I want to create an e-commerce. So you need people to develop that. You need people who can do the UI UX for you. You need people who can develop a content for you. You need people who can develop the platform for you, right? As an entrepreneur, you should actually go through whether, I'm just giving an example of e-commerce. Is Magento a good platform for me? Why? Is Laravel a good platform for me? Or a basic WordPress good platform for me? So that's where, the hardware, software, infrastructure, and the technology platforms, you need to develop, right? So this is again one of the most important aspect where you are doing the online business, right? And everybody, all business, all startups are on online today, right? Once you have the platform and all, you need to seek how I can distribute my service and my product in the market. Is it a product for a niche audience, or is it a product for the mass? What kind of a marketing I require? What set of parameters I require the KRS and KPIs for the marketing? So first, set up your marketing goals. Then to understand what is the investment I require for the marketing or these platforms. Once you're through with your culture, with your parameters of culture, once you see that, okay, I have enablers in the market, once you see that, okay, I have people who can guide me, once you see that, okay, I have done the platform, I'm done with the platform, or I'm going to do the platform on XYZ technology, what next? Marketing. What is my marketing goals? Right? And then what is the ROI attached with this marketing goals? Right? How I'm getting the payments? Platform, again, a technology is an enabler for you, but how I'm receiving the payments, right? Industry. Industry is something where you need to spend some good amount of time to understand who is my right audience, right? What kind of a ecosystem I am creating as a startup in the market? What are the industry forums where I can actually go and talk about my service, my product, my ideas? I have seen one guy who had an idea for a e-logistics. He actually truly believe in his idea. And the first day I met him, I said, see, the idea is great, but there are a lot of challenges in the market. I'm not sure whether you can sustain it or not. Because of his culture, which I spoke about, the optimism and belief, the positiveness, right? He said, don't worry, sir. I am going to talk about this in all the industry forums, whichever comes, and let me see. After 3.5 years, he got the funding from one of the esteemed and well-known investor in the market. And he's into the e-logistics. So this is something, where you have created a culture for yourself that, you really believe in into your idea. And then you feel that, yes, by knowing your potential audience, right? You know where to seek, where are my forums, where to meet, whom to meet. A backend support is the government. For example, you have some government agencies like Niti Aayog, right, who actually select some of the startups and then raise the funds for them. So the one is raising of funds, but again, second, which is very important, is the regulations, the regulatory forums and the forms, the bodies, I would say, from the government is very important to regulate these kind of a startup environment. They play a vital role in the success of this startup ecosystem. And of course, academy like Amity, who provides a great platform for all of you, for all the students, to come up to that kind of a stage where you get that kind of exposure, that people, come to you, you create the platform, you have that exposure to different knowledge, different industries, and so on. Once you have these 6 7 pillars with you and you feel that I'm very confident in terms of my journey as a culture, I'm talking about, not about anything else, then you feel that, okay, what is my next step to seek the investors, right? And there are certain stages. It can be a seed capital, it can be the angel investors and all, and I believe there is a separate session for the financials in this sessions, once we move on. Ashish, as an entrepreneur, right? I have a talent. I know my idea. What is the location and events I need to create for my journey? What are the mentors I require? What kind of advisors I require, right? Why incubation and acceleration is important for me, right? So from the last, if I say this is 6, 7 pillars, the gist is, I have a talent to do something of my own. I have an idea and concept which is validated by me or my mentors. I know what is my potential audience and customers, what is my location and events. I have a right set of mentors. I have enablers with me, which is Amity, which provides you that kind of incubation, right? And of course, the last, which is the investors, right? So we tried to see that, what is the pillars which is important for any kind of entrepreneurship, and the journey, how it takes place. What are the 7, 8 pillars which is very, very important to understand that am I ready for this, right? Now, if you see the ecosystem of entrepreneurship, first is the accessible markets. If it is India or I am looking something else, the regions, you really need to define the accessible markets. If you are possibly doing the idea is validated and then you see that, the business can be done only offline. I cannot do online because the idea is like that. So what is my accessible markets? Now this is creating an ecosystem for you. So that means if you have to seek some market which is not under your control, that means you're creating a kind of a networking with some markets. I'm sitting in Bangalore and I want to do a business in Delhi. So I need to see whether this market is accessible to me. And if it is accessible to me, in how manner it can be an output to my idea, right? Do I have that kind of a workforce with me? Do I have the people with me? So you need to create that second element of the ecosystem is the people. For any startup, the right set of people at the first level is so important. What are my support systems? Mentors. Again, the government and regulatory frameworks. Is it feasible for my idea? You really need to go through that. Once you have that, that element is part of your ecosystem. One person, one student from one of the university came up with a idea which was basically focusing on only on the tenders from the government, and the product was like that. So he really need to understand if these frameworks which are created by a government, right, the body, is it feasible for me as a startup, or should I focus on something else? If it is feasible and it's has to be part of your ecosystem, that means you really need to understand the framework, the feasibility of the framework. Research. You do your research in the market for the market, and then once you have the people on board, right, don't forget about trainings. First, you need to understand what kind of idea I have that I need to pass on to my employees or to my team members or to my co-founders. So don't forget the training, which is the part of the ecosystem. So it's not that you only have to train, you have the ecosystem. Again, the parameter is there. The one of the pillar, which is the training, is very, very important for any kind of ecosystem. And this Amity as a university, always play a role as a catalyst. They will provide you the platform, but then it's you who have to prove, in terms of your mental strength, in terms of your professionalism, and then of course you need to create that kind of a start of, the ideation part going through, and of course the cultural support, which is nobody but your parents, your family, right? Which is very important. If I give you my example again, I was married for almost 6 years and I have kid. But then still, I believe in my idea and I said, okay, fine, let me take a risk. But then, have you got that kind of a cultural support and the social support from your peers, from your family, from your friends is also very important. That is also a part of your ecosystem, right? So what are the right steps once you feel that, okay, I really need to, take this path? Yes, entrepreneurship is for me, okay, is first set up your vision, which is very, very important. And second, what you need to see is the KPIs and KRS for your ideation part to be aligned with the vision. In the market, identify the people who can be committed to you, who can be a helping hand to you to create that success story for you. So you need to invest on those stakeholders, the support system, right? Third, again, which I'm talking again, that the funding, investors, and all. So from day one, you should have a clear vision. At what stage I am seeking an investment. At what stage do I really need to seek an investment? Do I really need to go to the fund VCs? Do I really need to go to funders? If yes, if your idea is like that, you need to do your exercise from day one, right? And of course, once you have the people, once you have create that kind of a environment for you in terms of you have the co-founders, you have the team and all. The most important thing is everybody will come with their limited expertise or a vast expertise. So how do you define that step for yourself to leverage on their strengths and weaknesses, right? So the leveraging on the resources, leveraging resources with their strengths and weaknesses is very important. And of course, when you are actually trying to do this, create this environment and ecosystem for yourself, when you are trying to build this journey for yourself, you also need to seek the partnerships. I'm starting a startup, and it can be a small idea, but I need few people to be in so that it can be a successful journey, right? A small example is your IT, is the laptops. If you have 5 people, the first step to work on is the laptops. So you really need one partner in that area who can actually help you, right, at the initial stage to create that journey success for you, right? I'm not talking about the funded startups and all. I'm just talking about from the initial stage. Once you have the idea, you're still on the benches of MIT, or you're still, thinking of going to the after 2 years, starting your ideation part and all. So these things, has to be in mind. These are the right 4 5 steps which you really need to create for yourself to be into that ecosystem. Once you have the idea, you have the validation, you have the mentors with you, and got the capital for yourself, or you have done enough business, you have the money and all. What is the next challenge for any startup is the scalability. How do you define the scalability? Is it that I am actually multiplying my clients or customers? or am I multiplying my resources? So it's again the whole set of parameters where the scalability is defined. And it's also, interdependent on each other. If you're doing a great business, you will certainly hire more people. But then is this business happening with a fluke, or you really have a business plan for that? So once you have that ideation part done, validation is done, mentors on board, you have business going, you have the funding and all, you really need to have a business plan, independent business plan for scalability. That's how you and your idea will grow. I have seen a lot of startups getting the funding and then getting stuck at that level because of the no scalability vision. So important it is, once you have a successful 3-4 steps for your ideation part, for your startup and all, the scalability creates another pillar in the ecosystem. Now let's have a look on few kind of few steps in funding. As I said, there will be a separate session for finance. But again, it's very important to understand from a entrepreneurship, when I am actually trying to kickstart an idea, right? Either it can be a bootstrap. I have some money, I have saved some money, right? I want to start it. I have a plan. I can run the show for next 6 months. I can run the show for next 3 months or a year, right? Or I can be a crowdfunding. I pull my money, I pull the money from my relatives, my friends, my circle, and this will go on for next 2 years, right? This slide is all about you to plan, what kind of investment I require, and do I require at what stage. So when you are actually trying to build your idea and all, at that moment only, you should have this kind of a mindset whether I have to go for the investment or not. And there are certain stages, certain phases which defines the funding pyramid. Incubation, seed, Series A, Series B, Series C. When somebody sees a big money and all, it says, I have got a Series A or Series B funding. So one of the element which creates that startup ecosystem is the investors and the VCs. Okay. So that's why, you really need to have that kind of a mindset with you when you are actually working on your ideation part, that what kind of a funding and when, or I don't need funding. Let's talk about the startup ecosystem pillars. We have gone through the entrepreneurship pillars, then we have gone through the steps to follow for entrepreneurs. Then we have heard about the fundings, finances, how important it is, and when we require this, right? Now let's understand the ecosystem for a startup, right? Which is nothing but it comes from the startup ecosystem itself, right? When different people, when different startups join hands together, it creates a different ecosystem which can be viable to do a business. If the stakeholders are coming from different expertise level, different expert industries, when they are actually helping a hand to you, it also creates an ecosystem for you. Enablers, investors, mentors, all these people, technical people, who lend you the IT, the resources, government regulations, availability of the capital for you. In what way? That's what you need to understand the whole finance business approach for your idea. And also, which is very important is the collaborative culture for the startups. You can have a one idea which is very, very great idea for a village, right? The second startup can be part of it. That's how the ecosystem is created within the startups. It's nothing, just 10 people coming together with different kind of expertise and different kind of mindsets and different kind of skill sets, right? That creates the whole ecosystem of the startup. And everybody plays a very vital role, when we are actually trying to understand that the journey of a startup ecosystem. But as I always said, and at the first of my slide also I said, that mindset, the culture is very, very important for you. What makes a startup a very successful startup ecosystem? The first thing comes whether your government is a supportive for the startups. Do they have the policies? Do they have these kind of a regulatory forums? Do they have the bodies which will regulate this ecosystem or which will provide a platform for you? Platform in different ways. It can be a platform for your funding. It can be a platform for your infrastructure. It can be a platform for so many things. So is my government taking the startups seriously? Do they have a defined culture for the startups? That is the first element of a successful startup ecosystem. Second, which is very important, like we always heard about Azim Premji's incubator, or they have funded, or the Reliance have funded XYZ uh, startup. So how important a corporate plays a role in that? They don't just come up with in the market to acquire a startup because they just want to do some competition with their ex competitor. They really define their objectives to acquire any kind of a startup. They do their research. They have a R&D team. So this kind of a corporate, which is called a spin-off in the ecosystem, is also a very important pillar. Sometimes, people talk that, he just want to acquire and eat the small fishes to make it a big whale. But then if you really try to understand, the whole ecosystem, from the corporate side, what are their objectives? It's a very vast to understand, the objectives and the intentions of a corporate. So they play a very vital role when we are trying to understand the ecosystem for a startup. They have a separate set of people. They have a full team, to understand the whole market, the whole startup ecosystem and all. Then they pump the money. Third, which is very important across India, I would say, is these kind of research institutions and incubators. I was visiting Hyderabad incubator. I met a lot of the young people, vibrant people. They wanted to create something for India. I'm not saying that it's make in India and all. It's something they want to create for their own country. There were so many bright ideas. There were so many things they want to do. Of course, as a startup idea, they want to build their own career and all. But then what I'm trying to say is there are so many incubators and institutions who are providing these kind of platforms, and that too free of cost. Any entrepreneur who is actually have a brilliant idea, but then is not able to sustain or survive in the market because of the infrastructures. So these institutions or the incubators play a really, really vital role, when we are trying to create this successful ecosystem. Academic institutions like MIT. I follow MIT incubators, you know, so closely, and I can see that lot of sessions, interactive sessions, lot of successful sessions come into the place, and then a lot of uh, learnings are coming for the students. Learnings are coming for these kind of startup people. So again, these academic institutions are playing a very, very vital role. Also, there are forums and communities, where these startup people share their ideas, share their feelings and the expressions. There's a book club which is across India now. So they started from Bangalore, and they had just 3-4 members who used to come and sit on the floor and read the books. And from these three people, when they were trying to collaborate on the reading, they came up with this idea that why don't we create that kind of an ecosystem within this idea that people who wants to read the some kind of a unique books, and people who have these kind of books can actually lend to others. So that's where this innovative culture for the entrepreneurship makes another pillar for a successful ecosystem of the startup. Technology, everybody knows, everybody is using the smartphone. So technology is an enabler. To talk about any startup, either they have the web or the mobile app. Now, how to create that hook is all about on the startups. But technology plays a really vital role in the success of this ecosystem. So these are, 5-6 pillars, I would say, what makes an ecosystem successful. But two people are very, very important. One is all of you people who are actually sitting on a Saturday evening and listening to these talks. You are spending some few hours of your personal time, that too on a weekend, right? You are the young generation, you are the young people, vibrant people who have so many things in their mind. That's where you play a very, very vital role in the success of an ecosystem. This session would have not been possible without you guys. So from here, once you have the ideas and you try to create a startup journey, you create a entrepreneurship journey for you. That's where you become a part of this ecosystem. Being success or failure is a different thing. My idea got success, my idea got failure is something different. But then the participation is more important. The positive things and the vibrant things which are coming from this kind of audience is really commendable. Every week I interact so many of these young people, and they have so much of energy to create this ecosystem, a successful ecosystem. And of course, few experienced entrepreneurs who have already bite the dust, and then who have gone through these challenges, who have understood a bit ecosystem. I always believe and feel that nobody can be a perfect person. Even after 20 years of experience with me as profession or a professionally, I still learn new things every day. So the young people who are you and the experienced entrepreneurs also plays a vital role for the success of the ecosystem. Now this is very interesting, uh, uh, part which I actually wanted to share with you. And of course, we can have once you guys are unmute yourself, uh, we can have some discussion on this slide, because I always give this slide to people, to young guys to work on, right? So I think yes, after question and answer session, we can spend some time on this and understand your ideology, and then of course any advice on that from my side, I would be glad to do. Bharat, over to you.
Bharat, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Hello. Yes. So we can start now the question and answer session. And so if any of you have any query related with the lecture that sir has delivered right now, please, you may raise your hands and one by one you may ask the questions.
So, uh, right now, are there any specific fields which Indian government is pushing a lot more than others, like other fields?
Yes. So there are 26 fields where the government of India, or I would say the Niti Aayog, is coming up for the startups. But the most important, where they are playing a very vital role in terms of promoting it, is the agriculture as of now. Okay, but that doesn't mean that they are ignoring other fields. But as of now, they are just very keen to understand the startup ideas which can come from you people to fill the gaps in the industry. And then of course, apart from the agriculture, there is also called as a e-services, e-services to reach to the rural people, the audiences, where they are not getting that kind of a services, and we can have some kind of ideas for them to help them to reach out to these kind of a services. But on the top, it is agriculture.
Thank you, sir.
So I have one question.
Sure, please go on.
Good evening, sir. So my first question is that, sir, with our startups, can we generate more and more employment in the country? And the second question is that, sir, how Niti Aayog is helping the startups to generate the employment in our country?
Yeah, okay. Let me answer your first question first. Yes, of course, all the startups, whether it's a small startup or a big startup, everybody is trying to raise the employment and right kind of employment, right? Uh, to second question, yes, Niti Aayog have some policies, and they are trying to generate this employment within the startup, and there are so many regulatories which is actually keen to understand what kind of a employment, a different kind of a employment. There are forums and all which is done by Niti Aayog with the startups to understand what kind of a different employments can be created within the India. And it's not, we are not focusing only on T1 cities and all. It's also about the T2 T3 cities, where we can reach and pull this good number of resources and skill sets from small towns. I was interacting with in one of the session, and then we found there is a lot of skill set which is hidden in these small cities. I'll give you one example. I was in Indore, and the person, or on the technology side, we were seeking from last three months. We could find in a place in Indore, and he was actually uh, living in a very small house. Uh, his situation, I would say, financially was not great. But then, if you see, his skill sets were really great, you know and then of course he was hired by the by one of the startup. So what I'm trying to say, yes, startups are trying to create the employment. And second, Niti Aayog also have some of the policies. So I would not try to convey the things from the Niti Aayog as of now, because as an individual I can say. But yes, or from Niti Aayog, there are so many policies and regulations for generation of employment. Also, they are seeking helps from the startups.
Thank you so much, sir.
Yes, anyone else who has query? Yes, Bharat, please go ahead.
I'm really sorry, sir. Last time I don't know, I had some network glitch, I guess. I have a very small question, sir. Um, Suddenly, there was a hike in the number of incubators and startup facilitators in the industry, right? And even now, many of the organizations, even universities, are coming up with incubators. So, sir, I would like to know your opinion on to how much these incubators are really helpful for the startups, and what all kinds of help they can really provide to the startup, or how much of the support they can be.
Sir, you are on mute.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, Bharat. So certainly these incubators are helping a lot to startups. There are a lot of incubators which are coming from last couple of years. There are the listed incubators which are listed on the government panel, and there are also the incubators which are coming as a individual, kind of a thing. But certainly, if you see overall, in terms of these incubators are really a help to the startup people. First is the infrastructure. The person is getting internet, the basic facilities, the water, coffee and tea, the place to work, and to work with different teams, right? And I have seen the valid incubators where they have some 20, 30 odd people, and every single person is working on a different idea. But every ideation they go through, and they do the sessions on every week with others. That's where the collaborative efforts are actually coming up for an eco to create that kind of ecosystem. And apart from this, they also provide the mentors and the advisors. They have created a good lot of pool of the mentors, who can actually guide these young startups and these people, you know what is right and what is wrong. As I said, mentors can only guide, but then of course the entrepreneur or the startup guy has to take the decision. But yes, certainly to specific to your question, incubators are helping, lending a very good helping hand to these startups. And of course, there are a lot of startups incubators also which are providing the financial aid to these in terms of the scholarships to certain extent. And apart from that, they also are helping them to go to some other platforms which are helpful for these startups. So overall, I see, yes, the genuine incubators are trying to help these startups in a genuine way. I'm not talking about other incubators who are really into in the market just for the business, but then certainly 80 to 90% of the incubators are really helpful to the startups.
Sir, we have one more question from one of our participants, Margaret Francis. How can we eliminate the unexpected risk factors?
See, first thing which is very important is the business plan for any startup. If you are involved 100% on any ideation part, as I said in my session also, first you need to validate the idea. So the first risk factor is eliminated. And now your question can be, how can you validate the idea? Certainly with the help of a research, with the help of a market analysis, with the help of your mentors, okay, who can actually give you that kind of a validation. So first risk factor is your validation of the idea, and nobody can be a foolproof. But then of course, looking at the market research, looking at your competition in the market, you can always go with that market research analysis that, okay, is this idea good to go into the market with my business plan, with my go to market strategy? Can I create something unique out in the market? So I think first, validation of your idea with the right set of parameters and people eliminates the first risk. Second, a validated business plan is very important, which eliminates the second risk in the market. Third, of course, when you look at your pockets. So when you are aware about that, how much bootstrap I can do, or how much crowdfunding I can do, or when we require the investor, can I sustain till then? I think that is the third element, which is taking your risk factor again. So at every stage of the startup, you are eliminating the risk factors, right? And there are so many risk factors also, but now only because of the research validation it's possible in terms of the risk factor elimination.
So two more questions are there. Yes, sir. One is from Ajink Upadhyay. What kind of edge do funded startups have over bootstrapped startups?
Good question, but it's always like if you are running a house with four family members, and you know that your expense is coming 10,000 per month, right? And you have that 10,000 in your pocket to run for a year, right? Second, you have four members, your expense is 20,000. So that means you need some external force to have the funding with you so that you can sustain for 1 year, right? So any startup who is funded have one edge, which is a major edge, is the sustainability and scalability. The person who is bootstrapped will never think of scalability at the first instance. He will always think of a sustainability. The funded one is always working on two tires. That is one, sustain, how to sustain, and second, how to scale. So I hope this has answered your question.
Thank you, sir. Another question is, sir, how to determine whether a person with a great idea is capable of starting a business?
As I said in my earlier talk also, that validation of any idea is not a gut feel. It's something that you have to do some kind of a market research, right? If I am coming as an e-commerce against Flipkart, will I sustain, or do I have something else to offer to my customers, or something else? So that means you have to do some kind of a research, right? If it is a category based, for example, I just want to go with three categories. What edge I have on my competitors? If it is a new idea, right? Again, you need to see the potential market and the potential audience for you. Once you have understood, and again, I'm saying it's not a gut feel to validate the idea. It's all about the analysis, the market research. R&D is required to validate any kind of idea, whether it's a small or big. It you know, it has to be validated through proper data as well as the research. Yes, Dr. Rastana.
Yes, just a minute, sir.
Sure.
Just yeah. Another question is, what excellent collaboration is recommended
What?
for what only this much is written? What excellent collaboration is recommended? I think that he wants to ask what are the optimum mix of factors for a successful startup.
See, any for any successful startup is the collaboration of the people first. Okay, once you have the collaboration of people, because one person cannot run the show. So first collaboration, if I have understood your question rightly, is the people first. You should have four layer of people where you can rely and you can see a success of your idea part with them, right? I'm not saying that these should be the people who will say yes to every statements. There has to be a mix of people who will criticize your decisions right in a right manner, who will tell you that these are the challenges, these are the hiccups we can actually see in coming months, right? And these are the challenges for us. So first thing, which is a very important as a collaborative factor, is the people, right set of people. Second, of course, the infrastructure collaborations, which is very much important for your startup and running of startup. And third, of course, which is the market collaboration. As I said, if you are doing an offline business or an online business, you really need to push your limits to the markets which is accessible and non-accessible to you. So there you need to have a collaborative effort with the people to do your business, to make a success for your startup idea. Otherwise, what will happen? You will be in your shell, and then that success is limited, or it's a kind of a limited exposure. So that's why these collaborations are very important. First thing, after the idea validation, you really need to see the right set of people, the market collaboration and the infrastructure collaboration, which are very important three collaboration at the beginning of the startup.
Thank you, sir. One more question is there. Um, how can we do a profit or loss analysis during the starting days of a startup? And when should we get the idea whether the idea will be a success or failure? How we are going to really determine whether this startup is going to be a success before starting it?
Okay, good question again. Uh, so first thing, in terms of profit and loss, you really need to see. I think there is a one more session from my end where I will actually take you through the parameters, also to gauge the profit and loss at the beginning of the startup idea. Uh, two things are very important: is what kind of investment I require, because we are talking about the profit and loss. So what kind of an investment is required at the early stage, right? And what kind of revenues I can make at the early stage, right? So second factor, am I again looking for a funder? Am I looking for an investor, an external uh, force to actually help me with the funding? So profit and loss is all about your revenue plus your expenses. Now, how will you at the start of your startup idea will say that whether it's going to be a profit or a loss? So that all depends on the service ideation or the product ideation. There are certain factors which you really need to evaluate, you know, when you are talking about a business plan and the profit and loss. There are certain parameters which needs to be checked out in the checkbox or from the checkbox to see whether I will be positive or I will be negative after 3 months or 4 months, right? So again, it varies from the product startup, it varies in a service startup, okay, and it also varies in terms of the investment required for that particular startup. So now how you can gauge is something, I can take you through in my next session, is the business planning for your ideations, business planning for your startup, where at least 80% of, you will understand that, yes, I can survive, I can sustain, or it's a profit or a loss for me after 3 months or 6 months.
Uh, Sir, the next question is, what according to you are the common mistakes done by the young entrepreneurs while taking their product to the market?
I think first is the go-to-market strategy, which is very important. And people, the startup guys, need to do a POC, which is a proof of concept, right? Which is very important before they actually take this into the market. So first mistake, which is the common mistake from any entrepreneur for the product, is the POC. POC is very, very important to gauge the product for the market.
Thank you, sir. I think now there are no more queries, and so you can go ahead with the activity that you were talking about.
Sure. So I would request Dr. Astana if you can, whoever wants to participate can unmute.
Yes, yes, please. Just a minute, sir. Sorry, sir. One more question has come up. Yes. Startup business with retail is recommended or not?
Again, it depends on what kind of retail. See, I'll tell you, if it is something on a personal retailing, yes, it will sustain and it's going well. I'll give you an example. The eyewears, the eyeglasses is one of the picking up business in the market, uh, which is coming in India, and a lot of brands are trying to invest in India with the startups having this retailing opportunity in India. Why? Because of two reasons. Because the volume game is there in India, and second, the cost effective is there. So I would say it all depends on what kind of a idea you have for retailing. Uh, I would love to hear some of idea. Maybe we can have a one-on-one session if Dr. Astana arranges for it. So yes, certainly
Sure, sure.
I can guide you for that. I can validate your idea at the first level, that without doing the market research. First thing that yes, this idea will work for a retail. But yes, overall retailing is picking up in India, and as I said, that one of the example is the eyewear.
Um, okay, participants. As sir is going to undertake a activity, so you can unmute yourself. Well, but first raise your hands, and one by one, participate in that, because if you come simultaneously or everybody comes together, so there will be problem. So yes sir, we can start the activity and they will raise their hands.
Right. See, this is the one of the activity which I do with every any kind of a platform I give. And because of COVID, it used to be a face-to-face activity, and we used to have a lot of fun in this. As we have some time, so let me tell you, uh, for all of you, you can actually, or I can send this slide to Dr. Astana, and then he can actually circulate with you guys. So first thing, what you need to write is, what is your idea, right? When you write about your idea, then first thing is, what advice I require from my family, from my mentor, or from an incubator, or anybody who is around you, right? Second is the challenges. So I have an idea. What are the challenges in the market? List down. Then what is the challenges I have to go through for this idea part? For this idea, what is my existing network? So what is network? Network is your friends, family, any kind of a relative and all. So is my idea impacting my network? Yes or no? And what kind of a help I can take from my network? Do I have that kind of existing network who will help me for this idea? Next is funding for the idea. We are talking only about the idea. What is the pocket I have for this idea? Just write it down. Then what kind of acquisition I am looking? Put one number. If I am putting 100 rupees on this, I want acquisition at least 1 lakh rupee from an acquisitor. So this is one activity I would like to have a interaction with you. So what I want is, I want to hear from you guys that you have an idea. Please do not share idea with me or on this forum. I would like to hear what kind of advice you would require. Is it a business advice? Is it X advice? Whatever is going in your mind for that particular idea, if you have, what kind of advice you would require? So anybody can, if you want to participate, please.
Yes Lokendra, you may unmute yourself.
So I would need advice on how to search at that particular field of my.
I'm sorry, I'm not able to hear you. Uh,
Yes,
your voice is
you,
breaking.
yes,
Can you hear me now?
yes Lokendra.
Yeah, so I wanted advice on how can I research more efficiently on my idea. The best sources, the best places to go, because there's too much information, but I find it difficult to get them in an organized way. So the basic is I want a guidance on the researching part.
Mhm. So now I'll tell you, there are a lot of incubators. Uh, I'm sure we have a wing in Amity also, which can help you to actually uh, solve your queries on the advice part, right? Uh, right kind of advice can be given only by the people who already have gone through, right? Or who have seen this kind of a market, or who can do the analysis from this, right? So what you can do is, you can park your question in terms of the what kind of idea advice you want related with that idea is, I think we can take it forward from there itself.
Okay, sir.
Yes, sir.
Anybody else to wants to participate for any kind of a parameter?
Yes. What is the question? Just a minute. So market research. Hmm. Can we do the market research online?
To some extent, yes, you can do the market research online. There are a lot of free materials available, but please see if it is a credited source. Okay, but yes, certainly you can have a lot of data from the online, and there are few of the links which I can help with those links, which will help you to understand the data and then do the market analysis from that.
Yes, Indra. Yes, Indra. You. Yes.
Hello, sir.
Yes. Yes.
Hello, Indra.
Good evening, sir.
Good
So,
evening.
my question is what is your advice on finding a co founder? Like, at what stage do you think it is advisable to get a co founder?
See, one is depends on your idea. Do you really need a co-founder? Okay, one, most of the startups require a co-founder. Okay, second, how do you choose a co-founder? One is on his skill sets. So you need to understand why I need a co-founder. For example, you are a MBA guy and you know the business, you can deal with the business, but you have no idea with the technology. So you can have a co-founder with the expertise or a knowledge with technology. So on, you need to understand your ideation part, your idea, and then what kind of a startup I have to run, what kind of a critical people are required. So out of these four or three or two or six critical people, you can have the co-founders. Second, which is very important to have a co-founder, is alignment of idea. Third, any I'm talking about the is from the emotional point of view also is the reliability. If you are choosing the any co-founder, please assign a task in the beginning to him or her. Tell him this is the timeline I want this assignment or task to be done, right? So in that way, if he is a prompt responder to you and giving on time, and he or she is showing an interest in it, you can at least validate that he is a reliable person to talk and we can take it forward. If you feel that he or she again is taking it lightly or on, I would say drop it at that moment. That means the co-founder is not, that person is not interested in your idea. Maybe some other intentions or some other things are there. So these three things will help you to validate a co-founder. First thing which is very important is the skill sets. So you need to understand what kind of a co-founder I require, whether a tech guy, whether a marketing guy, whether a salesperson, whether a business person, whether a mentor. It depends on that kind of a requirement, and then of course second and third.
Thank you, sir. But, like, do you think it is better to hire an executive, like, rather than having a co founder?
See, if it's a bootstrapped, then I would always prefer to have a co-founder. Okay, if it is a funded, then you can take unlimited calls of having people on the board.
Thank you, sir.
So another question is there. We need to study about the competitors in the initial stage or not?
to understand the competition and the competitors. You have to understand at the beginning of, that's where the validation of idea will take place. Otherwise, if you do this competition analysis after few months of picking up your idea, so that means you have already lost couple of months in that. So I would always suggest to do the competition analysis at the beginning. I'm not saying to go in a very detailed manner and a depth manner, but then you can see that, okay, I have five competitors in the market, what they are doing, okay, what activities they are doing, and how they are doing the business. Is it a successful idea? Is it failures? If it is failures, then what wrong they are doing? If it is success, so what good they are doing, and how you can improve, or do I have something else to offer to the customers or clients? So that competition analysis will really help you to understand and validate your idea.
Okay, sir. One more question. How do we find efficient, trustable funding organizations? Any example for the same?
Yeah, see, there will be, as you go on and your journey starts for a startup, you will find lot of individual uh, funders who will tell you that the idea looks great, but then when it comes keeping the money on the table, they will always tell you some or other thing, okay, we'll catch up, we'll meet up after 1 month, I'm busy here and there. Second, the serious VCs are always keen to have understanding of your idea, and second, understanding of your business plan. If somebody is not asking you the business plan, I don't think so he's a serious investor at the first place. Second, when you are meeting the investor and all, when they are asking the questions to you, you should also ask the questions to them. Don't shy away. Don't be scared of the investors that these are the guys who are investing into my startup idea, and if I ask few questions, they will get offended. Trust me, uh, those the investor business meets have always been successful, where the entrepreneur himself or herself is actually questioning on the investment part. So validation of any investor, you have to see whether he is really keen in knowing your idea and the business plan. If not, I would say he's not a serious buyer on that. Second, please feel free and you should have the questions ready for an investor. Okay, before enrolling on an investor meet and all, you can actually throw your questions to them to answer that. Okay, fine, you have shown some interest in my idea, but these are my certain questions which I would like to put for investors to come on a board, right? So it's your idea, you should have a control, even though somebody is investing into your company or a startup idea. So validations, these three things. One is to look at the seriousness, look at whether he's asking the relevant questions and the relevant data from you, and also you can put the counter questions to them to for the evaluation purpose.
Yes, sir. Yes, any participant who has any queries or comments on the activity part? Hello. Okay.
So
Okay,
what
sir.
you can do is, you can share the sheet with me. Can
Yes.
actually circulate it with the participants. Let them take time and then see what kind of challenges or what kind of advices are required, because that will give a kind of deep proof for their idea part, and they will understand where they are, what are the challenges with me, what are the network, because these are some of the basic things to validate your idea in terms of whether I really want to go for it, or do I need to wait for some time? Okay, when you understand these basic things from this activity, I would really appreciate if you really pick up the pen and write down on a piece of paper. You really understand whether you are serious about this idea, or should I back off?
Sure, sir. Sir, if you share this PPT or this activity slide with us, we can share it on our WhatsApp group, and then they will take some time and really respond. So, uh, one, yes, can we have one? Um, the they are saying that can we have a one-to-one session with Ashish sir regarding the startup?
Yes, yes, absolutely. You know, as per my availability and all, we can do that.
Yes, sure. So when one is asking for the PPT, saying that the PPT was really very informative and a useful session was really useful. So can you please share your PPT, sir?
Yes, yes, absolutely. This is for you, all of you. Uh, you can have this back in your mind, and whenever you feel that you want to understand few things from the ecosystem, I'm happy that I can contribute in that.
Thank you, sir. And one is asking, you talked about networking areas, sir. Please elaborate.
Yeah, so networking area is first thing you need to understand. If I have idea, so what kind of a network I already have? Do I have that existing network? Network is nothing. It's the contacts for you. It's the family members, it's the relatives, it's the friends, it's the colleagues, it's the whole contacts with you, whether they can help me in one way or other way to validate the idea. Second, to help me in one or other step. It can be to take in the market and share with somebody, to have that lend that expertise. So for example, I have a friend of mine who is an ex Infosys. So I asked him some relevant questions where his domain expertise lies. So I could validate of my startup idea because of my contact, my network. So first you need to have a look is my network at the first level, is somebody there who can actually help me on this ideation part. Second, on the next level. Third, on the third level. So there are stages for your startups where you can see that different network, that different people are can actually help you, support you in one way or other way. So my networking, basic networking, which I have shared in this slide of activity, is your first level of contact. Second networking, which is an elaborated one, is nothing but to build your network, to grow your business, to grow your idea, basically.
Uh, I think there are no more questions, sir. So with this, we are coming to the end of our session, and just a minute. So now just time to thank you, sir. Thank you for such a lucid explanation, sir, of the starting ecosystem. You very well explained the role of entrepreneurial culture, enablers, knowledge, investors' values, platforms, industry, and government and academia in entrepreneurial ecosystem. You also replied to the queries of our participants up to their satisfaction. I hope that this session will be really helpful for the budding entrepreneurs who have gathered here on this platform to understand the essentials to take their idea from the ideation stage to reality. Finally, on the behalf of the whole team of eStart 2021 and all the participants, I thank you for the sparing out some time of your busy schedule and making this session so enriching. I also thank you for acceding to our request to throw light on some more aspects of startups in the upcoming sessions. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Astana, and I think it was a great session from my side in terms of, even if I contributed 1% in terms of understanding the ecosystem for the startups. So I would really keen for next sessions with all of you. You
Yes.
know, I hope those sessions will also help them to understand it more better, and help them to actually come from the ideation part to the execution part.
Sure, sir. Sure. Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. And one participant is asking for your LinkedIn ID. So,
Okay,
if you will please share it, then will
sure.
be. Yeah. Okay.
I can share in the chat.
Yes, sir. Sure.
I'm not able to.
Okay. You can send it to us, and we'll be letting them know. Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your valuable time and guidance. Thank you, sir.
Thank you all. Have a good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you, Dr.
Bye.
Asana.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Bye.
Thank you.